Sarah Thompson had never imagined her world could fall apart so quickly. Only a few weeks earlier, her home in Vermont had been filled with warm light, soft laughter, and the familiar sound of her husband Daniel humming while he made breakfast. Now all of it felt distant, like a life she once lived but could no longer touch. The silence inside the house after Daniel's sudden passing was not just quiet. It felt like a weight pressing against her chest. Every morning she forced herself to get up, even though the bed felt too big and too cold. She would make a single cup of coffee and try not to look at Daniel's favorite mug still sitting on the shelf. She tried to keep her routines, hoping that structure would stop her mind from sinking deeper into sadness. But nothing worked. Each day blended into the next, slow and heavy, like walking through fog. That afternoon, the sky was gray, and rain hit the roof in steady taps. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, staring at a half-finished grocery list she couldn't bring herself to complete. She didn't expect anyone to visit, so the sudden knock at the front door made her jump. For a moment, she considered ignoring it. But something told her to stand up and look. When she opened the door, she froze. Standing on her porch was Michael Carter, Daniel's best friend since childhood. They had grown up together, played the same sports, survived countless adventures, and stayed close through every phase of life. Michael had been at the wedding, at birthdays, at every important moment. He had always been there, like a constant line woven through every chapter of their shared history. But today, he looked different. His dark brown hair was wet from the rain, his shoulders tense, and his usually calm face carried deep exhaustion. His eyes, normally bright, seemed weighed down by the same loss she felt every day. "Hey, Sarah," he said softly, almost in a whisper. "Can we talk?" His voice cracked slightly, and something inside her softened. She nodded and stepped aside. He walked in, wiped the rain off his jacket, and settled into the seat across from her at the kitchen table. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Sarah didn't know what to say. Michael looked like he had rehearsed something in his mind but lost the words on the way here. Finally, he took a slow breath. "I should have come earlier. I didn't know how to face it. I didn't know how to face you." It felt too real. She understood. Grief was not the same for everyone. Some people cried, some hid, and some disappeared into work. Michael had always been the type to hold everything inside until he couldn't anymore. "You're here now," Sarah said softly. "That matters." Michael nodded, grateful for her gentleness. Then he reached into the bag he carried and placed a small, worn notebook on the table. Sarah frowned. She recognized the cover instantly. It was Daniel's handwriting. Her breath caught. Where did you get this?" she asked. Michael didn't answer right away. Instead, he tapped the notebook gently, as if the object itself felt fragile. "Daniel gave it to me months before." He paused, swallowed hard, then continued. "He told me to keep it safe, and he asked me to give it to you only when I felt you were strong enough to read it." Sarah stared at the notebook, her fingers trembling. It felt too heavy to touch. Too final. Why would he do that? She whispered. Michael looked away, as if searching for strength on the kitchen walls. "Because he knew you. He knew how deeply you feel things. He didn't want you to read it suddenly without someone there. He wanted you to have time first." Sarah wanted to open it right then, but part of her feared what it might contain. Memories? Messages? Something he never said. She wasn't sure she could handle more emotions, not when every day already felt like she was holding herself together with thin threads. Michael watched her closely, seeing the pain in her eyes. He leaned forward slightly. "There's something else," he said. "Something Daniel told me. Something I didn't understand back then." Sarah's heart tightened. She didn't know if she was ready for more surprises. But Michael looked serious, too serious for this to be something small. "What is it?" she asked. Michael hesitated, then spoke slowly, choosing his words as if they held weight. "He made me promise him something." A strange, uneasy feeling spread across Sarah's chest. A promise. About what? Michael's throat moved as he swallowed. His eyes softened in a way Sarah had rarely seen tender. almost protective. He told me that if anything ever happened to him, I shouldn't leave you alone. He paused, then added more quietly. He said he didn't want you going through life without someone beside you. Sarah felt her breath thin. Her mind tried to make sense of it, but confusion and emotion blended too quickly. He said that, she whispered. Michael nodded. Yes, he told me that you're too strong to ask for help, but too kind to fight the world without support. He said someone would need to look after you. Sarah stared at him, feeling something shift inside her. A new ache. Or maybe something else entirely. But why you? She asked the question, slipping out naturally. Michael let out a long, painful breath. Because he trusted me. Because he knew I would protect you with everything I had. His voice trembled. That surprised Sarah. She had known Michael for years, but she had never seen him lose control like this. He continued, quieter this time. There's more to it. Sarah, more than just checking on you or helping with things around the house. He meant something deeper. I don't think he ever said it out loud, but he saw something before we ever realized it. Sarah's chest tightened with a swirl of emotions, shock, sadness, a strange warmth she didn't expect. What do you mean? She asked. Not Michael looked directly into her eyes. And in that moment, she understood something she had never noticed. Michael cared for her. Not just as Daniel's wife. Not just as a friend. There was something deeper, something he had buried for years. Maybe even without knowing it fully. He asked me not to leave you alone, Michael repeated softly. He said that if I ever found myself caring for you in ways that scared me, I should honor it, not run from it. Sarah felt the air shift around them. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't sudden. It was a quiet understanding that something had been living in the background of their lives, unnoticed until now. Her voice came out shaky. Michael, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he replied. I'm not here to push anything on you. I'm here because he trusted me with the one thing he cared about most to you. The room felt different now, warmer, sadder, more alive. Sarah looked at the notebook again, her emotions twisting inside. Daniel had always been thoughtful, but this was something she never could have imagined. The idea that he had seen something between her and Michael, even something unspoken, felt like a truth she was only now beginning to understand. Michael gently reached across the table and placed his hand near hers, not touching, but close enough that she felt the intention. I know this is too much, he said softly, and I know it's too soon. But there's something in that notebook that explains what he meant. Something he wrote just for you. Sarah stared at the notebook again. Her fingers hovered above it. What did he want you to tell me? She finally asked. Michael's voice dropped to a near whisper. He wanted me to tell you that if you ever needed someone to stand beside you, not just as a friend, but as someone who truly understands your heart, I should be that person. Her breath caught. She couldn't speak. Michael leaned back slightly, giving her space. You can read it when you're ready, he said. I'll be here. Not to take his place. No one can do that. But to keep his last promise. And to make sure you never have to face life alone. Sarah felt tears rise again. But there was something different this time. Not just grief. Not just sadness. Something new. Something she didn't yet understand. And the notebook remained unopened. Waiting for the moment she found the courage to read what her husband had left behind. The next morning, sunlight spilled into Sarah's kitchen, soft and golden, cutting through the melancholy that had filled the house for weeks. She sat at the table, the notebook in front of her. Her hands hovered above it, unsure if she was ready to open it. But something inside her, a mixture of curiosity, longing, and the quiet encouragement from Michael's presence, pushed her forward. She took a deep breath and flipped the first page. The handwriting was unmistakable. Daniel's neat, careful script. At first it was simple. Memories of their life together spilled across the pages. Their first date at the small cafe downtown. The road trip to Niagara Falls. Their late-night talks on the porch where dreams were shared and promises were made. Sarah's lips curved into a small smile through the tears. She could hear his voice in her mind, warm, steady, and comforting. For a moment, she allowed herself to relive the happiness she had once felt so effortlessly. Then the tone shifted. The words became more urgent, deeper. As if Daniel had poured his heart onto the paper in anticipation of a future he would never see. He spoke of his love for her, of the pride he felt for her resilience, and of the unspoken truths he had always known but never voiced aloud. Each line tugged at her heart, reminding her of the void she now felt, but also of the strength she had forgotten she possessed. And then she reached the part that made her chest tighten. Sarah, if you're reading this, it means I am no longer there to walk beside you. I wish I could have said more while I was alive, but I trust you to feel what I couldn't fully express. You are strong, beautiful, and deserving of love, even if it comes in a way neither of us expected. Her hands trembled. She blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. Daniel had always been thoughtful, but she had never imagined he would plan for her life after him. And yet, here it was, on paper, his last gift, his final guidance. Turning the page, she noticed something more personal. Words that had been addressed not just to her heart, but also to Michael. I've known for years that Michael cares for you in ways I cannot compete with. And I have seen it quietly from the sidelines. I never feared it because I knew where your heart was. But if I am gone, I want him to help you heal. Whether that means being a friend, a support, or someone more important in your life. I trust him. I need you to trust him too. Sarah paused, the notebook heavy in her hands. Her pulse raced, a strange mix of grief and hope tightening in her chest. Daniel had trusted Michael with her heart, and in some ways, he had opened a door that Sarah had never considered knocking on herself. When Michael returned later that day, rain had cleared, leaving the air fresh and clean. Sarah met him in the living room, holding the notebook with a mixture of reverence and hesitation. He had lingered at the doorway as though unsure how to step into this fragile new chapter. I read it, she said quietly, her voice trembling but steady. Michael's eyes widened slightly, but he nodded, a small, relieved smile forming. What? What did it say? He asked cautiously. Sarah took a moment to collect herself. She couldn't fully articulate the surge of emotions, but she knew she could share what mattered most. He wrote about us. About you? He trusted you with me if I needed help. He wanted you to be here in whatever way I needed. Michael's face softened. Relief mingled with an emotion she couldn't immediately name: hope, perhaps, or love carefully hidden for years. I never wanted to overstep. Not then, not now. I only want what's best for you, he said, his voice low and steady. I only want to honor him and to make sure you are not alone. Sarah felt the tension inside her chest begin to ease. For weeks, she had been carrying grief like a stone in her heart. And suddenly, the weight shifted just slightly. Someone else, someone Daniel trusted, was here, not to replace him, but to walk beside her. She allowed it. She looked down at the notebook again, tracing Daniel's words with her finger. Each sentence was a reminder of their life together, but also an invitation to begin again. Carefully, gently, and on her own terms. The realization brought a new wave of tears. But these weren't just for sorrow, they were for hope. You don't have to decide anything now. Michael said, as if reading her thoughts. I'm here. I'll be here. Whatever you need, whenever you're ready. His words were comforting, like a steady hand on her shoulder, grounding her. For the first time since Daniel's death, she felt a strange, warmthy, quiet spark of something beyond grief. Maybe it was trust. Maybe it was recognition of what had always been there. Something between her and Michael that Daniel had seen long before she did. They sat together in silence for a long time. Not awkward, but tentative. The air was heavy with unspoken feelings, with memories, with grief, but also with possibility. Sarah realized she didn't need to rush. She didn't need to define what this meant. She only needed to allow herself to feel, to notice, and to trust that the path would reveal itself in time. Days passed and Michael continued to visit. Sometimes it was to help with practical matters, groceries, bills, cleaning, but mostly it was his quiet presence, his steady company, and the way he listened without judgment. He never pushed, never asked for more than Sarah could give. But in each shared moment, she felt a bond growing softly, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, until she could no longer ignore it. One evening, after a long day of sorting through Daniel's belongings, Sarah found herself sitting on the porch, looking at the fading sunset. Michael joined her silently, carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed one to her, and their fingers brushed for a fleeting moment. "You used to love this view," Michael said gently. "Remember the first summer we moved in? Daniel insisted we watch the sunset every evening, even if just for a few minutes." Sarah smiled faintly. "I remember. It was simple, but it felt like the world stopped just for us." Michael nodded. "He wanted happiness for you. And I think he would want you to allow yourself that happiness again, even if it looks different now." She sipped her tea, feeling the warmth seep through her hands and into her chest. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel completely alone. She felt accompanied, supported, and seen. And she realized she was beginning to trust Michael, not because she felt pressured, but because she felt safe. Over time, the subtle tension between them evolved into quiet understanding. A glance lingered longer than necessary. A hand occasionally brushed hers, intentionally or not. A shared smile carried the memory of a man who had loved her, and the gentle promise of someone who cared for her in the present. One rainy night, Sarah found herself alone in the kitchen, looking at the notebook again. Michael had gone to get something, and the house was quiet except for the patter of raindrops. She opened it and reread the final lines Daniel had written. "Sarah, you are never alone. Even if I am gone, love surrounds you in many forms. Trust the people who love you. Let them help. And never close your heart to life again." Her eyes welled up, and she let herself cry, not from grief alone, but from release, from understanding, from the quiet recognition that life could move forward gently, with someone she had never considered in this way. Michael returned to find her sitting with the notebook, tears on her cheeks. He didn't speak immediately. He simply sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. She didn't move away. Instead, she allowed herself to feel the warmth of his presence, steady and patient. "Are you ready to talk about it?" he asked softly. She shook her head, smiling faintly through the tears. "Not yet, but I think I'm ready to start feeling again. That's enough for now." Michael nodded, understanding perfectly. No words were necessary. In that moment, Sarah realized that this was the kind of support Daniel had hoped for her. Not someone rushing her through grief, not someone replacing him, but someone present, loving, and patient, who could stand by her as she rebuilt her life. From that night on, a rhythm formed. Michael's presence was constant but gentle. He helped her with practical matters and emotional ones, always offering support without expectation. The warmth she felt toward him grew gradually, not as a replacement for Daniel, but as an addition to her heart's capacity to feel again by the time the notebook was fully read. Sarah felt a change within herself. She had confronted grief, revisited memories, and allowed herself to hope. Michael's quiet devotion reminded her that love could exist in many forms, and that moving forward didn't mean forgetting the past, it meant honoring it. While embracing life as it came, Sarah realized she had been holding her heart tightly for too long. The trust Daniel had placed in Michael was not a burden. It was a gift. And the gift wasn't about romance alone. It was about connection, support, understanding, and the courage to open her heart again. When she looked at Michael that evening, she saw more than a friend. She saw someone who could help her heal, someone who had been part of their shared life for years, someone who cared quietly, deeply, and patiently. And she knew, without needing to say it, that perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter, not replacing the old, but adding to it gently and carefully as life intended. The notebook sat on the table between them, a reminder of Daniel's love and wisdom. But more importantly, it symbolized the trust and hope that could carry Sarah forward. She didn't need to rush. She didn't need to define the future yet. All she needed was to take the first small steps, and Michael would walk beside her,